Welcome. Thanks for joining us. With the success of our MapleSec conference in October, we wanted to carry on the conversation. We created this satellite series so we could focus on issues raised at the conference and provide some much needed networking and community building that's been missing for the past year. And we wanted to do it in a way that would provide you insight, but still leave you with time to get your day-to-day critical things done. So for the next 100 minutes, we're going to explore the threat landscape, focusing for this session on new threats. Now, being in cybersecurity can feel a lot like being an FM disc jockey. The hits just keep on coming. But there's always some new threats and some golden oldies that get a new twist. And we all need time to keep up. But we won't just admire the problems today. As a group, our experts and all of you will offer solutions as well. That's today. We have more events through the year. May 11th, we'll focus on training, and on August 5th, the focus will be on incident response. These are all topics attendees at MapleSec asked for, and we listened. So don't forget, you can register for these next two events on the platform. Now, and whether it's on Twitter or in your feedback or email me, please let me know what you're interested in. We listen. And we shouldn't forget, we can't do these events without our great sponsors. So a big thank you to our platinum sponsor, Fortinet, our gold sponsor, Darktrace, and our presenting sponsors, Sira and Okta. And I can't forget our quiz sponsor, WatServe. These quizzes have turned out to be a real favorite, so thanks for that. You're going to need your phone for this one. We're going to do something a little different. So thanks to all our sponsors, and thanks to all of you for participating in the quiz in advance. And to our sponsors, yes, they're in the business to get your business. So you'll probably get a call from at least one of them. And when you do, you don't have to buy anything, but take a second to thank them. One last thank you, and that's our partners in the CIO Association, I'm a proud member, and the Women in Cybersecurity Organization. Thank you. Without your support, this event would not be possible. Now, this whole event is about what I call news you can use. And after the show, on the MapleSec TV platform, you will find some great informative content from these sponsors and from our journalists. There are some great videos and some cool things. But you are an important part of this event. How do you participate? Good question. Right now, I'm speaking to you from what we call the Jumbotron, the main viewing screen. And to my left, on your right-hand side, you'll find a messenger box. This will tell you how you can contribute to the conversation as the event rolls along. Watch for it, and you'll get directions. You see it there? Cool. Okay, if you have questions for me, for the speakers, or even for the community as a whole, you can make these magically appear right there. Just go to your Twitter account and ask the question using the hashtag MapleSec. It doesn't have to be a question. We'd love to hear your comments, but any hashtag MapleSec tagged tweets ending with a question mark will end up here. And there's more. The event will also feature an interactive workshop. We will break you, the audience, I prefer the term community, we will break you into 3 smaller groups for an interactive discussion with your peers about new threats and, for fun, a great case study developed by our experts. More about that later, but for now, engage and enjoy. So let's get started. And to kick it off, I'm going to call on John Madison, EVP and CMO from our platinum sponsor, Fortinet. Over to you, John.
Well, thanks, Jim. This is John Madison. I'm the CMO and EVP of products at Fortinet. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. We're a sponsor of this event, MapleSec, this year. We're also a sponsor last year, in actual fact. And looking forward to chatting and seeing some of the presentations. I think one of our speakers is on a panel, Derek Mankey. And Fortinet actually is about 20 years old as a company. We're one of the largest cybersecurity companies out there. And we've really grown through these different evolution points. If you go back 10, 15 years, you'll see that endpoint was really where all the data was. And so endpoint security was the big thing. Firewalls were really more about connectivity. As we progressed over the last 10 years, as the networks become more important, and as there's more data has gone to more centralized data centers, then next-gen firewalls have become very important. And now we've got cloud. And what we're saying as you go forward, that given endpoint and network and cloud, that a platform approach across all three of these things is very important. As customers accelerate their digital journey, their digital innovation, it really increases the attack surface across all three of those areas, and you need to make sure you protect all three of those areas. Now, Canada is a very important strategic place for us and country in that we have the majority of our engineers actually in Canada, in Burnaby, Vancouver, which is one of the largest engineering centers for us, and also in Ottawa, we also have a support center there. So very exciting for us, Canada, a big investment on our part in cybersecurity. We obviously think it's a very important topic for all types of companies of all sizes and all geographies, and looking forward to the session. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you, John. Great stuff. I always say that the sign of a great discussion is when you need to move on, but there's still lots to say. So I'm going to move us forward. But remember, you still can say things. Tweet your comments and questions using the hashtag MapleSec. Hashtag MapleSec. Now, we promised that we wouldn't just explore cybersecurity threats, although that's important. We also said we'd focus on what you can do to prepare and respond. So let's get started. Here with a brief overview and an introduction to our panel is Derek Mankey, Chief Security Insights and Global Threat Alliances with Fortinet. Take it away, Derek.
Thanks, Jim. Cybercrime has been pegged recently at a staggering $1 trillion cost to the world and the industry as a whole. With recent reports showing the average cost of a data breach is on the rise at nearly $4 million US. $4 million just for one data breach. And this is just a drop in the bucket. We're seeing this spread worldwide. It's in fact twice that amount, over $8 million US to our neighbors down south. This is a global pandemic on its own, cybercrime. What we're also seeing with FortiGuard Labs is that the average time to contain a breach now is increasing. It's not decreasing. It's gone from in 2019 from about 220 days to 280 days in 2020. Cybercrime is a global problem. It affects all of us. That's why it's imperative that we collaborate and participate in events like the MapleSec Satellite Summit. I have 10 years of experience building collaborative platforms in the industry, helping with these, including the Cyber Threat Alliance, Interpol Gateway, the World Economic Forum Center for Cybersecurity platform. And it's always great. It's always great to have good, like-minded and bright individuals together in one place to try to talk about the rise of the threats and how we can combat them. We can talk about things like the risk, the sophistication. We're seeing exploitation and blackmail cases with ransomware now, targeted ransom that are crippling, revenue services, causing organizations to bleed millions of dollars a day. And we're also seeing whaling attacks now going after chief financial officers for business email compromise. These are all just parts of the large problem as a whole. And so Fortinet is pleased to be able to sponsor a panel discussion that is going to bring together an ethical hacker, a 2020 Top Women in Cybersecurity honoree, and a CIO from a major university to share ideas on the horizon and how we can prepare. I'm going to turn it over to Steve Proctor, IT World Canada's VP of Communications, to lead the panel. You can take it away now, Steve.
Thanks, Derek. I think you've set the stage marvelously. So let's get straight into it. I'm pleased to be here with three cybersecurity veterans to discuss this topic. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and answer this question. What's the one new and emerging threat or adaptation that you see coming in the new year? And why don't we start with you, Kimberly?
Thanks very much. So I'm Kimberly St. Pierre. I'm Director of Strategic Accounts with Tanium, and I'm based in Vancouver, BC. I think I'm not going to call it a new threat, but I certainly think it is emerging, and I think it's something that is not given enough focus and attention. Is the basics, is basic IT hygiene. Quite often when we're reading about breaches or events in the news, it comes back to something very simple that wasn't done. So I think having a focus on greater IT hygiene is going to be something that organizations are really going to need to focus on.
My name is Terry Cutler. I'm the CEO and founder of Cyology Labs in Montreal. So I totally agree with Kimberly. The other issue that we're going to be focusing on is especially the whole working from home. This pandemic isn't going away anytime soon. So companies need to beef up their employees' home networks as well. So they have to start looking at new technologies, new threat management systems. That's going to help them keep their employees safe at home.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Barr. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, or SAIT, in Calgary, Alberta. For us, the emergent threat that is coming in is via third party. We are almost fully cloudified now, or partnered out with third party vendors, probably in the dozens. And the SolarWinds attack in November, December has really raised the threat level of our partnerships. And when a company like a Microsoft or numerous departments within the U.S. government are compromised, you know that it's real. So I would say for us, that's something that we are working really hard on right now and keeping an eye on. A lot of people that we work with have been compromised, and a lot of folks like the U.S. government are being told, rip and replace your entire system. There's no patching, there's no fixing, you can't antivirus it, rip and replace.
Every morning on Cybersecurity Today, I hear of a new gang, a new threat, a new ransomware kind of thing. Is that real?
So definitely supply chain attacks are going to be on the rise. And I really foresee a shortage in cybersecurity experts. So we're already short staffed as it is. And as these attacks are really ramping up, I think experts are going to be in short demand, especially now at 2020. The cybersecurity, the criminals had a chance to, we'll say, hone their game, and 2021 is just going to be even worse.
And I think when you think of, where they're going to need to focus and what they're going to start wanting to spend some time on is reducing complexity. When you think of how complex an organization is with a, potentially global distributed remote workforce, the challenge of managing multiple different enterprises that might be under one global brand, then you tie in, compliance and regulatory requirements into the mix. That level of complexity is off the charts just from a business standpoint, never mind all of the technology tools that they're trying to cobble together to make things work. So I think where a lot of focus is going to be is on simplicity, driving more efficiencies within the organization, and back to that people, process, and technology, especially with the talent shortage. So I think a lot of organizations are going to try to drive that complexity out of their organizations where possible in multiple different means.
So we were talking about complexity and how, everybody's got firewalls all over the place now, and we've got our endpoint security and stuff like that. What are the potential alternatives to that? Is there a moving to a trustless that works?
Because our environment is growing in complexity, oftentimes even beyond our control. If you want to talk about what used to be called shadow IT, I'm toying with ideas of what would a trustless environment look like, where we basically assume that everyone is hostile, even though they're not, but just assume that they are to make things simpler. But of course, is it really simple? Now, blockchain is an idea, but it's not a high-speed transactional system, but as an idea of encrypting everything, so where you, the consumer, you, the student, are in control of your own information. But again, that just adds more complexity. So that's a consideration.
You have to understand something. Cybersecurity is not about convenience, right? So obviously when you start bringing in these technologies, it's going to cause a lot of disruption for the non-technical end users, right? They have to go jump through so many hoops, two-factor authentication. I mean, they're already struggling with this now. So it's it's going to require a lot of awareness training for the end users for sure to use this technology.
I want to jump to a couple of other threats that are out there that are emerging that people are talking about. One's the Internet of Things. Some people have called it the Wild West still because there isn't enough security protocols built into those things, but it's a market that's going to grow to 1.1 trillion by 2026. How high of a concern should that be on an organization's cybersecurity radar? And Kim, you're smiling at that, so you go first.
So what bugs me most about IoT is I really believe that the device manufacturers have gotten off very easy for a lot of years. I believe they need to take more responsibility to ensure that those devices can be easily, and I say really easily, secured right out of the box. For example, making sure that those systems or the devices can be easily managed, easily patched, easily secured by general IT or security teams, and not having to rely on that device manufacturer to do something. And you see a lot of proprietary IoT device systems in, say, a manufacturing facility. We're starting to see some proposed legislation changes, which has to happen. There's really nothing else that would encourage these organizations that develop those IoT devices to comply if we don't see legislation.
Back in the 90s, used to have an engineer going around from sensor to sensor and manually taking the readings, right? But now fast forward to 2000, they had the genius idea was, if we all interconnect this thing, we can get the readings all quicker in real time. But these devices were never meant to be connected to the internet. These operational technology devices are made for a specific purpose, right? There's no hard drives on these things. There's very limited storage. You can't put antivirus on this thing. You can't put EDR. So now you're left with technology that's probably completely obsolete, unsupported, and you still got to carry this around because you can't just rip and replace this technology. So now you're bringing it into a more complex world where these devices could get hacked and controlled. I mean, look what happened in Florida, right, with that water treatment plant. So it's a whole new world of headache coming towards us right now.
My favorite story is about the Las Vegas casino that was robbed when they got in through the thermometer in the fish tank. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay, so another threat that's out there that people talk about is cloud jacking. We're very much into a cloud environment, and it's actually tapped to be one of the most prominent threats in the next 3 years. Can you just tell me a little bit about cloud jacking and what we should be doing or what the organization should be doing to pay attention to it?
From what I've seen, many of the incidents, if not most of the incidents, are caused by poor hygiene. So could be misconfiguration of the cloud environment. And talking about hygiene again, I believe that it's not just for traditional IT assets. That's really it needs to be mandatory for cloud as well. So when you start thinking about what an organization needs to do is have that real-time visibility into their cloud environment, know where they're vulnerable, know if there's been any configurations that have been changed and that have suddenly exposed them. When you think of a traditional environment and how many people on a team may be touching that cloud environment, if they're doing any kind of development work or if they're, tweaking something or trying to, have different systems talking to one another or integrating or any updates that they're doing, quite often they're making changes that they don't even realize they've now left the front door open. So back to that hygiene piece, it needs to be treated just as any other IT asset from a visibility and a security standpoint.
Like I said, we have dozens of partners that we work with in our whole ecosystem. So of course we have legal contractual SLAs and all that, but there's a lot of weasel clauses in there. So I wouldn't be too sure like, oh, everything's covered, I'm good. My cyber insurance policy, I can sleep just fine. Read your cyber insurance policy. Chances are pretty good if you need to make a claim against your policy, you probably can't make a claim because you probably have a pre-existing condition, as they call it in the US, about some door that you left open or some question that you didn't ask or some piece of paper you forgot to get initialed or whatever. So it's up to you. Third party risk management, you got to know your vendors. You have to have it. But again, there's another relationship you want to have. So they oftentimes will have what they call a breach coach. So if you get breached, they'll assign you a breach coach. this is someone that we've been talking to. We make a point of talking to our insurance company, the breach coach, to actually go through our simulations and to go out to do our business continuity planning. There's another example of a vendor that we work with to go walk us through what you do and what are some of the preventative things we could do.
I think what's also going to be coming down on the insurance side in the future is that if you do not have EDR technology in your environment, we might not even insure you, because some of these claims, they start at $60,000, can easily go to $300,000, and it's just bringing your environment back just prior to the breach. There's no improvements on this thing, so it gets very, very costly. So that's why cyber insurance is extremely important for folks that don't have it or is on the fence about getting it. You don't want to be stuck with a $300,000 bill, because within 6 months your business can go under.
Everybody's still talking about ransomware. Everybody still needs to know. There are gangs out there that are working together on ransomware projects, and some I understand are even developing a sort of a malware as a service option. How much have you seen ransomware evolve, and where do you think it's going?
Well, on the ransomware side, we started seeing some real evolution with ransomwares like Maze, which has a double extortion piece in it. So what happens is that the cyber criminals will get into your environment, ransomware it, and if you are able to recover from your backups, well, they've already extracted a copy of your data. Now they could say, you know what? That's good that you recovered your data, but if you don't pay us, we're going to leak it. So the bad guys have a backup plan too.
Anybody want to talk in terms of what about the issue of whether a company should pay the ransomware or not? Is there anybody feel strongly on that regard?
I think, again, it's going to vary from company to company. As if you have your data backed up, maybe you don't need to pay the ransom. Or, if your backups are not also being held for ransom and your data is encrypted, then, maybe you're not at so much risk. But I think there's really no guarantee that even if you do pay the ransom that you're going to get your data back. They may sell it anyway. Every company is gonna be different, but then also tying back into your, in your insurance policy, are there certain criteria in your policy that dictate whether ransom will be paid or not? If they can't pay that ransom out of their business savings account, if they can't do that, then is insurance even an option to do that? So I think every company is going to be different depending on their industry, the business health of their actual organization, and the size of the organization. So I don't have a advice of whether you should or shouldn't, because I think every scenario is going to be so unique.
The takeaway is it's massively disruptive, and you're always going to feel forever compromised, even if you pay and everything goes back to being all nice and whatever. You're always going to be compromised, and so that's why it's like, just man, oh man, do the upfront planning, do the upfront work, and work with your users on please don't click on links.
So when you get hit with a ransomware, you're down for a minimum of 100 hours. And what happens is that once the ransomware has gotten in, it caught a copy of the skeleton keys from Active Directory, which means that they can come in and re-ransom you at any time. So sometimes, depending on the size of your environment, it might be faster and cheaper to pay for the ransom than it is to rebuild the network and get it back up and running. And even if you do pay the ransom, there's no guarantee you're going to get the key back. You're going to get the key. And even if you do get the key, you still got to decrypt your data, make a backup of it, rip and replace your environment again because you can't trust the environment, and then restore the data. So it gets extremely expensive. People don't realize how expensive a ransomware recovery is.
But I want to bring that back to the last question I want each of you to answer is, so what do you think the cybersecurity mistake that people will be making 5 years from now that they shouldn't be making?
I think it's going to be even worse with deepfake going on. I think deepfake voice and deepfake video, deepfake voice of, hey, it's the some senior person in my organization. I think that spoofing for people who are in a rush or whatever. I think we're just going to have super clever ways of being compromised. So it's like clicking on links like 5 or 10 years ago. It's going to be something like that. Yeah.
One of the things that I still see often is that a lot of organizations aren't seeing that cybersecurity, a healthy cybersecurity posture really needs to be that living, breathing organism, which is an ever evolving journey. There seems to be a lot of activity done after a specific incident or when something happens or is brought to the board's attention, for example. But I think that constant evolution and that it's never a checkbox, that it's never completed, and then better collaboration and communication between different business and technology units right up to the C-suite and the board level. There's still a massive breakdown in communication, and there's that one skill set that is very rare. And some cybersecurity and technology leaders possess this, but they're maybe only one of the people that do. Is that ability to communicate true business risk down into technology and not have that breakdown in the lines of communication and that lost in translation. So I think the collaboration and the communication piece is still going to be very high on people's radar.
Yeah, I think we're still going to be coming down to the same problem, which is human error. Somebody's going to wake up, didn't have enough coffee, didn't get enough sleep. He's not going to pay attention, click on something he's not supposed to, reveal the information, and give away the keys to the kingdom. That's why you need to have the zero trust, stuff in place to really your cyber parachute in case there's a problem.
Well, I like to think that the audience has learned a lot of stuff today from this panel. So I thank you very much for being with us. I look forward to speaking to you again. I'm now going to throw it back to Derek and for the rest of the show. Thank you very much, panel.
Thanks, Steve. And thank you to Terry, Michael, and Kimberly for your observations. That was an amazing discussion. There's lots to unpack here, and I hope that if you have questions, you'll raise them during the workshop a bit later.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Nguyen. I'm a Vice President and Field CISO here at Fortinet. We are arguably the number one pure-play cybersecurity company in the world. Our market capitalization on any given day right now is somewhere north of $25 billion US. Our billings this year will be greater than $2.6 billion. Right now, we actually have more than 700 patents, which is actually more than all the patents in the industry combined. With over 30% of all the global firewall shipments, we have a huge footprint and really have a great visibility in terms of what's happening in the wild today in terms of cybersecurity. We have more than 472,000 customers equally distributed around the world, also distributed across small, medium, large global enterprises, public and private sector as well. Our portfolio is represented by our Fortinet Security Fabric, which is an integrated portfolio of more than 30 products designed to collect and share information to enhance the accuracy and accelerate the detection and mitigation of cybersecurity threats. We also have more than 400 partners spanning 3,200 products, which means the Fortinet customers' investments are never negated, that their legacy requirements are supported, their current requirements are met, and their future requirements can be met across that organic fabric as well as through the partners. It's a global company. We're headquarters and publicly traded in the United States in Silicon Valley, in Sunnyvale, California. We have development facilities and offices throughout the Americas. We're the largest IT employer in Vancouver. We have presence in Ottawa and in Toronto and Montreal and across the Americas, into Western Europe, into South and Central Asia, and into the Pacific Rim. We're more than 8,100 employees and growing at about 24% year over year in terms of just the staff itself, supporting 59,000 partners around the world on a 24/7 basis. And what you see there is a publicly traded tier one cybersecurity company, in fact, the only pure play cybersecurity company in the S&P 500. And we also are unique in that we're the only cybersecurity company to be recognized by Gartner in both the security space as well as in the SD-WAN arena. And that's very important moving forward, because I think the future 3 to 5 years moving forward, it's going to be dominated by 3 fundamental technologies in security, or rather security approaches. The first is zero trust, this idea of ubiquitous privileged access, meaning that only the right users and entity can access the right applications and resources. SD-WAN, because as you shift to cloud computing, the network will shift to SD-WAN as well, and its corollary in terms of SASE. And I think that's what really makes Fortinet so unique, because we're the only security company in the entire industry that really integrates and facilitates that convergence. The networking, the compute, and security really all work together to deliver the customer experience to ensure that outcome. That's a nutshell about who we are and why I think we're so different and why it should matter to someone like yourself. Again, my name is Jonathan Nguyen. I'm a Vice President and Field CISO here at Fortinet. Thank you.
Thank you, panel. Thanks, Derek and Jonathan. Thank you. Great panel. There's a lot to keep track of in cybersecurity. New kinds of attacks, new threat groups, new ways to develop a safety-first culture, and both local and global cybersecurity regulation. And keeping up with all of this is a challenge that we all face. Now, here's one way I keep track of it all. Every morning, as I'm on the exercise bike, I'm listening to the tech news with #trending and to the latest cybersecurity news on the podcast Cybersecurity Today with Howard Solomon from the ITWC Podcast Network. Cybersecurity Today is a 6 to 7 minute format 3 times a week, and it now has a weekend version featuring an in-depth interview with a cybersecurity expert. Howard leverages his incredible network of sources to provide timely updates on the latest cybersecurity threats, data breach disclosures, but most importantly, how you can secure your firm in an increasingly risky time. And it's really good. You don't need to take my word for it. It is regularly ranked in the listings of the top cybersecurity podcasts. It's just crossed 2 million downloads. That's a feat that only a handful of podcasts ever achieve. Cybersecurity Today is traditionally presented in an audio format, but for today, we asked Howard to let us see him recording the podcast. This is an exclusive MapleSec scoop. MapleSec only looked behind the scenes at this hit podcast. For today, you can see it, but you can hear it every day if you subscribe on the MapleSec platform or through any of your favorite podcast distributors. And if you miss anything, there's a text version published on itworldcanada.com. So if you're trying to just raise awareness in your company, your organization, or even your own network, why not get your team and your friends to subscribe? And then you start your meetings with a new icebreaker. Did you listen to Cybersecurity Today? And on that note, take it away, Howard.
Welcome to Cybersecurity Today. I'm Howard Solomon, contributing reporter on cybersecurity for itworldcanada.com. This is a special video edition of my podcast for MapleSec. Ransomware is a scourge that scares information security leaders, and rightly so. At the time I recorded this podcast, the American division of an Asian car manufacturer was reportedly facing a $20 million ransomware demand. An attack on a billing contractor to California's Department of Motor Vehicles compromised personal information of millions of car drivers, and France was promising more support for hospitals across the country after 2 institutions were hit. Sophos recently released this advice on what to do if you've been hit by ransomware. First, determine if the attack is still underway. If it is, and you don't have the tools to stop it, determine which devices have been impacted and isolate them by unplugging them from the network. Don't turn them off unless you can't disconnect them from the network, because that may do more harm than good. Then assess the damage. Figure out what data has been lost. Are your backups okay, or have they been encrypted as well? Also, don't rely on email to communicate with staff or outside consultants, because your email may have been hacked as well. One thing to check is if admin accounts have been compromised, giving attackers access to credentials. Another is check for backdoors on networks, because that's how attackers come and go, and they exfiltrate data. Look for unapproved folders and directories, which attackers will have set up to store stolen data for exfiltration. And look for FTP uploading tools like FileZilla, Total Commander FTP, or rclone. Remember, ransomware is the best reason why IT administrators have to monitor networks for intrusions around the clock. By the way, there's a new ransomware tactic going around, launching distributed denial of service attacks against an organization's website, and then demanding money to get decryption keys for scrambled data, or the attack will continue. Denial of service attacks are like someone knocking on the door for hours, The door is your website. Too many knocks and the website crashes, and then the organization has trouble doing business. Organizations should consider adding denial of service defenses to their cybersecurity strategies. Typically, these defenses blunt denial of service attacks by spreading the huge wave of knocks across the internet. Regardless of whether an incident is ransomware, data theft, or data destruction, there are some things an organization can do to reduce the cost of an attack. IT professionals in large organizations, surveyed by Kaspersky, said the financial losses that they suffered in a data breach that was almost immediately discovered were 32% lower than those that took a week or longer to find. Among small and medium-sized firms, the losses were 17% lower. Now, that's expected. After all, detection saves money. In dollar figures, survey respondents estimated that a data breach quickly caught by a small or medium-sized organization cost $98,000 to fix. That rose to $118,000 for those who said it took over a week to detect the breach. But here's another interesting fact from that survey. On average, organizations that voluntarily told their customers and partners about a breach said they suffered less total financial damage than those whose audiences found out through a news story. And that's in part because there's less reputational damage from being upfront. In fact, organizations can take a lesson from the chief executive of the Singapore telecom Singtel, who last week apologized for a January 20th data breach that led to the theft of personal data of 129,000 customers. How did those attackers get in? By exploiting what appears to have been a zero-day vulnerability in a file uploading application called Excellion FTA. Holes in that product have been recently discovered by hackers who are taking advantage of those vulnerabilities faster than Excellion can patch them. The Office of Washington State's auditor was hacked through this application last month. Last week, a Cleveland-based law firm said its client files were copied by an attacker that got in through this application. Excellion said it is retiring FTA. That's it for this edition. Remember, Cybersecurity Today is heard on Mondays, Wednesdays, and twice on Fridays. Because on Fridays, there's also a week in review edition in the afternoon when I talk about the news of the week with a guest. Subscribe to Cybersecurity Today on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or add us to your flash briefing on your smart speaker. Thanks for listening. I'm Howard Solomon.
I may be a little behind the times, not real good with a computer, but I learned me a thing or two and I'm here to be your tutor. Bad people, they be everywhere, we call them cyber threats. And where do you go to find them all? They're on the internets. Malware ain't the clothes you wear for shopping at the mall. And whatever you do, don't click the part of where it says install. There's phishing with a PH now, I'll give it to you straight. Certainly not the worms we used, it's all about clickbait. Hijack ain't the thing you say when Jack comes by to see ya. It's pretty much like hell on earth, I wouldn't wanna be ya. Beware of any cookies, not made for you by mom. I'd best describe the sight you'll see ya swallowing a bomb. Firmware's not those pills you take to help you with your lovin'. And the cloud, that puffy thing up there, it's where they put your stuff in. So grab yourself protection now, no more computer shimmies. If a Nigerian prince has money for you, meet him for coffee at Timmy's.
Thanks, Howard. You certainly do know how to get the conversation started. And that animation you just saw following Howard, was an award-winning video produced by our creative staff who also produce all of this. It won a gold medal at the Canadian Online Publishing Awards. Okay. Hey, I see there have been some comments in the messenger box and some conversations on Twitter using hashtag MapleSec. That's fantastic. So you're also going to have an opportunity for some real face-to-face engagement in a few minutes during the workshop session. Say that 3 times real fast. But right now, we're going to test your trivia skills with a live quiz sponsored by WatServe, an IT solution provider that offers a managed cloud environment engineered for reliability, performance, and security. Check out the MapleSec platform for one of their downloads and just look for their logo. Okay, you ready to get clicking? You are going to need your phone. Get your phone. You haven't left you because you still have your phone, right? Yeah. Got it? Okay, great. Now open the browser and go to the website polev.com, polev.com/ITWC. In case you miss it, it's also down here on the screen, okay? So take out your phone, go to polev.com/ITWC with your browser. Okay, everybody got there? Okay. Now, this application requires a cookie to operate it. So if you get a notice, just do the cookie monster. Cookie. Well, no, accept it, okay? Now, we're going to do a test question to make sure you get it and you got running, and then we'll follow with the real quiz. Now, since you have to keep up with the pace of cybersecurity today, we're going to move you through them rapidly. So be quick with your responses. You got your phone, you've got the polev/ITWC, and you'll be able to see the responses live so you can compare yourself with your audience colleagues. Little competition there. Okay. Test question. Our sponsor, WatServe, has curated a highly skilled team of cloud experts who specialize in A, reporting UV levels, B, keeping track of who serves next in a tennis match, C, helping businesses digitally transform through cloud technologies and services and managing even the most complex security scenarios, or D, delivering takeout meals. We're waiting for the answers as you're coming in there. A, UV levels, B, tennis match, C, helping businesses digitally transform, or D, delivering takeout meals. So let's get the answer in there. And we're just waiting. Get your answers in there. Everybody's come in. Okay. A, B, C, or D? Which one's in there? So, yeah, okay. So reporting UV levels, okay. Keeping track of who's B, keeping track of who serves next in a tennis match. C, helping businesses digitally transform through cloud technologies and services and managing even the most complex security scenarios. D, delivering takeout meals. Now this is just a test, so don't panic there. Just grab your phone and get your answers in there. So, okay, 1 of 2. And the answer is, of course, C. How'd you do? You did well. Okay, question 1. This is for real now. Threat actors are taking advantage of COVID-19 as an opportunity to register malicious websites. These malicious websites are disguised as A, appeals from charitable organizations. Could be one, appeals from charitable organizations. B, updates on the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Or C, sales outlets for vaccines, treatments, medical equipment, personal protective equipment, and even cleaning supplies. So A, appeals from charitable organizations. B, updates from the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. C, sales outlets for vaccines, treatments, medical equipment, personal protective equipment, even cleaning supplies. Or D, all of the above. So which one do you think it is? Just get in there on your phone. A, B, C, or D. Okay. And then I can do it like I can hum the tune to Jeopardy. I don't know if we have to pay. Do we have to pay royalties if I do that? Never mind. Probably do have to pay royalties now. Okay. A, appeals from charitable organizations. B, updates on the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Or C, sales outlets for vaccines, treatments, medical equipment, all of those, or D, all of the above. So let's pick one of those in there. Okay, we're waiting for your answers. Don't get tense. Okay, answer is D. Good stuff. Look at that. Oh, look at you. Good for you. Okay, we got the swing of this now. We're ready? We're rocking. Okay. Question 2. You're rocking it now. So we're going to pick up the pace a little bit with you there. It's okay. If you spot a fake website related to COVID-19, you report it to the World Health Organization. Report it to who? No, bad joke. Better than the cookie joke. But B, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. C, the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. Or D, CBC's Marketplace. So which one is it? Is it A, the WHO, the World Health Organization? B, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre? C, the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity? Or D, CBC's Marketplace? Okay, so don't, come on, get in there. Don't freeze up on me now. We're in the stretch. So which one is it? A, B, C, or D? Pick one of those. World Health Organization, Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, C, Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, or D, CBC's Marketplace. Okay, the answer is, oh, look at this. Oh, no, cool. If you got B, you got it right. The Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity is great, but they're not where you report it. They have a whole different thing in there, and maybe we'll do something on that, and you can probably find something in itworldcanada.com. But it's the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. That's the place you report it to. Question 3. Hey, you learn something, everything on these. According to the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity's National Cyber Threat Assessment, you can see what these guys do, their National Cybersecurity Threat Assessment for 2020, A, ransomware attacks will continue to target large enterprises and critical infrastructure providers. That's A. So ransomware attacks will continue to target large enterprises and critical infrastructure providers. Or B, state-sponsored actors will almost certainly continue to attempt to steal Canadian intellectual property and proprietary information, especially related to COVID-19. Or C, cyber threat is increasing and becoming more sophisticated. So which one is it? Is it ransomware attacks and will it continue to target large enterprises and critical infrastructure providers? B, state, or is it C, or is it D? And so oh, look at you. You guys, you rock. All right. D, all of the above. You're right. In there. Question 4. We're rolling. Protecting the remote workplace should begin with a security assessment. Yes, it should. But that security assessment should include A, addressing threats that require immediate action. B, plotting a path to realize the value of existing investments. Or C, ensuring that existing infrastructure is up to the task. Or D, all of the above. So A, addressing threats that require immediate action. B, plotting a path to realize the value of existing investments. C, ensuring existing infrastructure is up to the task. Or D, all of the above. Is it A, B, C, or D? Come on, you've been doing great so far, so get in there. Get in there with your answers, okay? We're starting to see the answers coming in. So A, B, C, or D. Pick one of those and we'll move on in there. So, right? And the answer is, oh man, you guys rock. This is great. Answer D. You're all cybersecurity experts out there. You're gonna love it in the workshop. You'll have much to contribute. Good stuff. This is our last question. So, final question. Can you get there? Question 5. The global cybersecurity industry sales and services are expected to top how much by 2023? Top in terms of money. So is it A, is it 200 billion US dollars? Is it 10 billion? B, is it 27 billion? Or is it 110 billion? What's that in Canadian? That'd be probably like 400 trillion or something. Never mind. A is, how much will they be spent? 200 billion? B, 10 billion? C, 27 billion? Or D, 110 billion? Okay, so this is your final one in there. And the answer is 200 billion. Look at, most of you got it. 200 billion in there. Yeah, 200 billion. $1 billion here, $1 billion there. It adds up. Okay, was that fun or what? Yeah? What an intelligent audience. Not just good looking, but intelligent too. And speaking of intelligence, now, You got to love the segue there. Speaking of intelligence, artificial intelligence is proving to be one of the key weapons to fight cybersecurity threats out there today. So how can we, as cybersecurity professionals, as people, how can we work with this new technology? Our next presenter is going to address the issues of the AI-human interface. And it's my pleasure to introduce Marcus Fowler, Director of Strategic Threat for Darktrace. And if you don't know, Darktrace is an AI company that specializes in cyber defense. It was established in 2013 and has 44 offices worldwide. Now, Marcus is going to take a few minutes to talk about artificial intelligence and security and how it can help augment human decision-making. The cyber podium is yours, Marcus.
Hello, I'm Marcus Fowler, the Director of Strategic Threat at Darktrace, and I'm talking today about how AI is augmenting humans and closing the skills gap and driving executive decisions. And really, to kind of boil this down even more than that statement is we're talking about increasing threat understanding and threat situational awareness across organizations, at the same time augmenting the security team to get them more cycles and more efficient use of their time. So in terms of what's coming up and what we're going to cover, security, the broader implications to businesses, the complex widening threat landscape, advances in cyber attacks, what embracing digital and augmenting the human looks like, and then go through a use case with a ransomware example that I know institutions and companies are increasingly having to deal with. And so it's critically important that we're able to position ourselves best to defend and disrupt at the absolute earliest moments of it occurring. So just a quick snapshot about Darktrace. And it's an artificial intelligence company focused on deploying that technology in the cybersecurity space. And I really kind of stress the importance of how long we've been thinking about, not only thinking about, but applying in the real world sense, AI and machine learning. And that's true since day one in 2013. So day one, 2013, companies built by mathematicians focused on math, as long as partnering with security professionals out of MI5 and MI6. So day one, artificial intelligence and machine learning is where we're going to focus, and applying that to cybersecurity is what we're going to do, right? And that even continues today. We haven't deviated from those technologies. And we've actually, set some of the industry benchmarks around both artificial intelligence for understanding and visibility, augmenting the human team, and then finally for autonomous response, the ability to disrupt attacks in their earliest moments. So let's talk about the security challenges for decision makers, right? The need to be as forward-leaning and advanced in terms of proactive defense, and here I'm thinking about and talking about intelligent detection and response, needs to be quick, right? Because the cost to companies, I think this is felt at every level, right? Reputational damage, IP theft, taking entire business operations offline. If you're thinking about something like ransomware, the increased digital dependency, right? The areas of the business that are now super reliant on ever more extended and vulnerable pieces of the digital environment. It really is, to put it greatly in that last point, a balancing act of transformation for the enterprise and how to do that securely. Today's threats. I don't think it's any surprise that we're going to hear they're unpredictable and they're accelerating. We've seen this, right? They're scaling more quickly. They are more advanced, whether they're coming from IoT devices. We saw one attack coming via a biometric thermometer that someone had put in their offices, right? It wasn't necessarily, I shouldn't say an attack, but rather an area of vulnerability because it started beaking out to a foreign country. Dependency in cloud, right? Accelerating that space for business survival, but also what was the erosion of visibility and understanding and security in that space? SaaS platforms. I think for me, it hits perfectly onto that digital dependency, right? How much more are you now leveraging Teams, Zoom, Salesforce, right? And being able to defend in these spaces. Cyber attackers have been in this space, accelerating it from day one. They've been looking to take advantage. So as we've increased complexity, they've been there to try and meet the vulnerability that comes with it. And their time from attack to impact is shortening, right? And at the same time as a spike, more attackers. At this point, one only has to know how to purchase Bitcoin to do ransomware as a service, know how to get on the dark web so you can leverage these things for attack. For the attackers, the return on investment is absolutely there. Lag in security response. So this isn't, security teams not doing their role or not meeting the need, right? It really is about not so much a skills shortage, what we hear so often from, the industry. It's a cycle shortage, right? We're trying to get, and we increasingly need to get more critical work out of that security team to meet the increase in security responses and security incidents, right? And when we think about AI, we're thinking about how can we augment that human team, not replace. And I can't stress that enough. Not replace. How can we do more with a technology that's perfectly positioned to investigate, do some of the early lifting in such a way that the security team is now starting a place of informed action rather than initial incident response. And that's really where the AI has its most powerful, augmenting the human, autonomously investigating, providing continuous understanding, visibility, and detection, and then allowing it to also have a machine speed response so that any attack in its earliest moments stops and is disrupted. This allows the team to come to an incident with mitigation in mind, not incident response and damage control, right? The house won't be on fire. So how does this look from at a macro view in terms of the AI analyst? We've used supervised learning and watched our own analysts for about 4 years, tens of thousands of events, in order to train it in a way that now it's continuously investigating 100% of the threats. It is providing reporting and points of action in those exact moments. I've talked to customers. We talk about our reduction in triage by 92%. The customers I speak with, 8 times more threat investigations that they're getting through in a day. 10 times more, because the humans are now much more informed, right? From the minute that their fingers touch the keyboard. It's been really powerful. And I say this as someone that did counterterrorism work with the CIA for more than a decade. And my greatest stress was that I wasn't using those critical human experts in the most efficient way against the most credible and imminent threats. And here's why that autonomous response, autonomous triage really plays a role in terms of strategic advantage, morale even, your workforce working harder and having more success against, credible threats, not chasing little, big initial incidents that end up going nowhere or end up being non-malicious. Very powerful. Let's walk into a perfect example of a ransomware event that we're all living and dealing with in the Shifra ransomware. Breaking down kind of what that looks like. It's a low-level ransomware. It's first observed in 2016. Run manually, so there's not a lot of automation here, but that also allows it to be more stealthy and be more adapting to an environment. No double threat. So we see a lot of double threat ransomware attacks in which they're going after stealing and data exfiltration on top of file encryption. For this, because they're not a double threat actor, this does mean that they're going to move more quickly. They're going to move very quickly to that file encryption and doing that damage out of the gate rather than trying to take time exfiltrating data in which they might be detected. And living off the land techniques. Because it's manual, being able to be stealthy, being able to stay within the noise of your already environment is powerful. They're going to RDP those exposed things, and they're going to remove, and recovery tools are available online and as well to expedite payment. How did we see it? Right, over about 7 days, here's how the progression of the attack broke down. Right, we know the phases of the kill chain, all the attack phases, from the script download to lateral movement reconnaissance, and then ransomware delivery there at the end. Using Mimecats, moving into the admin credentials. These are all the elements that you really want your security team to be hyper aware of in the earliest moments, because these are the areas that you may have a chance to disrupt the attack. But if you don't see these, or if you're alerted to them, but you don't have the enriched understanding, they're easily missed, and they're easily not until that it's too late do you tend to come across or be able to address concerns. So, For Darktrace, what do those detections look like? I think we all can see fairly easily in front of us all the alerts that are going on, right? So this explosion of alerts. But that's just the point of investigation. Okay, I have these alerts. Let me put it in context. What do I need to do? What are the next 20 to 30 clicks of the investigation that I'm going to have to take? Well, if you have the AI analyst, that's already done, right? By clicking on this, you're able to pull up the investigation of all those alerts. You're able to see it across the kill chain, dig more deeply and investigate each one of those with a very natural language summary, start points, different devices that are impacted. You can click throughout this. You can also easily turn this into a PDF report that can be shared across your organization for that shared situational awareness. So the AI analyst, super impactful, speeding up, augmenting the human team. A number of resources we have that you can deep dive. I jokingly say we have a Library of Congress full of white papers. Here are all the different areas we can explore exactly what I said a little bit more. But I think it's a critical area where Darktrace is uniquely having a massive impact in terms of how human teams are getting more efficient and moving through investigations by the application of AI in that investigation standpoint. Thank you everyone for attending. And now we'll go right back to Jim.
Thank you, Marcus. Okay. Now, it's time for the workshop part of the program. This is the opportunity for you, the audience, to participate and have your say. Now, to get into workshop mode, you need to click on the link in the messenger box. It's right beside me, right over here. Right, see where I'm pointing? It's right over there. So grab that, okay, got it? Okay, now, you're gonna hear about how the workshops are gonna be organized once you get inside. You're gonna love it. Click now and over there, and we'll see you on the other side. Okay? Click now, we'll see you on the other side.